Hey, what is going on, community and culture night friends? It's me here. Uh, Excited for tonight. We have two really great speakers and friends of the group. One is Kris, and then Madeline. We'll get going in a sec. So I'm just going to wait just about a minute or so just to allow people the opportunity to hop on. We will be doing some yoga. So if you want to change maybe into some shorts or yoga pants or whatever you need, we want to make sure that you have time to do that. So now is the time to make that happen. All right. So I'll give you just a few more seconds to get going. All right. We'll talk in about a minute. And I forgot to mention, I'm wearing shorts too, so I'm ready to rock and roll. We'll wait just a couple more seconds and then we'll bring Kris on here in a bit and we'll get going. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started because I know we want to make sure we are appreciative of your time. Like I mentioned, we're really excited for today. We are starting to go once a month. So we will talk about what the next few months kind of look like for us in light of what's happening. But for today, we're still going to be virtual. We're really excited to have two friends, Kris and Madeline, here. We're going to invite Kris up first. As we kind of mentioned before, Kris is currently in residency in Chicago. And so we're just going to talk to Kris about his journey through med school, him being on the front lines with everything happening with the global pandemic that we're experiencing. I know a lot of us have read and heard from a lot of different people with everything happening. And so I think it would be a really great perspective to have someone who's our age, who is really on the front lines of this as his career starting. And so not to put lots of additional pressure on Kris, but we're really excited to chat with him. So we're going to spend the first 15 minutes chatting with him, getting to a little bit more and his story, and then we'll transition to Madeline. So again, as you guys know, and if you've done this before, feel free to leave any questions at any point in time in the chat. We'll be sure to leave time for questions for both people at the end of their segment. But we're going to go ahead and bring Kris on in here in a second. Awesome. What's going on, Kris? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for being a part of this. We really appreciate it. You just got off work, didn't you?
I did, yes. I just got off work. So we're an hour behind Indiana, so just got off a 12-hour shift. Yeah.
You are a beast for being a part of this with us, man. I'm seriously so thankful. Seriously, appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad that I could be here to kind of get some light on what's going on.
Cool. Well, I know a lot of people want to jump to that, but I kind of want to take a back step just for a second because I'm really fascinated by people who choose to be a doctor and the work and like the schooling it takes to kind of pursue something in this field. So I would love just to hear from you and just to share with the people who are watching, why did you decide to become a doctor and how has that process been? If you could just, I know this is kind of a big question, but kind of take us through kind of each phase. Because I think we've all watched Grey's Anatomy and I think we have an idea of what, it looks like to go to med school, but we actually have absolutely no idea. So if you could walk us through that, that would be great. And introduce yourself as well.
Yeah. So I guess it all started out whenever I was in elementary school. I was wanting to, become a professional athlete, and so I was started out playing football in elementary, and ended up breaking my arm, and that led me to having to go to to the hospital pretty frequently, and the doctor at that time was, I really looked up to him. He was super nice and super enjoyable to kind of interact and talk with, and he tried showing me and teaching me during that time. And so I think that that was the initial hook into me to make me interested in medicine. And I guess I kind of just stuck with that. I like the idea of being a doctor, being able to help out, being able to provide for people that really needed a service. And as I kind of progressed through, I kind of stuck with that. And whenever I started dating Ellery, which I feel like most people probably know, but Ellery is my wife. Her mom was in healthcare, and she was specifically in radiology. And I kind of got a little bit of experience being in around the medicine kind of world, because no one in my family is in medicine. And so that really allowed me to kind of understand the inner workings of the healthcare system a little bit more. And it just kind of further made me interested. And she kind of helped me get tapped into that system, and kind of get to know some people. And so just kind of slowly progressing through, I was able to be fortunate enough to have opportunities to learn from healthcare providers throughout the leading up into college. And then
you went to ISU, correct?
Yeah, so I went to Indiana State. Yeah.
Was there ever a time at ISU where you're like, I do not want to do this, or were you always pretty much like stayed the course?
Yeah, so I guess I was crazy enough that I never really lost sight of that. Yeah, I enjoyed, so in college, you're always doing courses that are, like, I guess you could say, a little bit more stimulating and a little bit more of a time commitment. And so I guess I was just always so busy, I never really had a moment to think that it was too far gone. Yeah, I was too far gone into that process. Yeah, so I think that really going to a small school like Indiana State allowed me to kind of connect with my professors on more of an individual level.
Right.
And so that kind of kept me engaged throughout the entire process. So I never really kind of like strayed away. I know that, a lot of the people that I work with now, they started out in other fields, and then, kind of somehow worked their way into the healthcare system, based off of not really liking the other jobs or whatever. But yeah, I'm one of the few that I guess kind of kept with it and stayed on track and didn't really stray away from medicine.
So after undergrad, what that transition is med school, correct? So
Yeah.
how does that work?
Yeah, so getting into med school is the first major hurdle, I feel like.
Yeah.
So you end up having to take like a big entrance exam, and it's pretty challenging. Like most people, they have to take it a couple times, and then once you get into medical school, then that's where the fun begins, and that's where whenever I say I was busy in college, it makes it look like I was on vacation. So
we all had that moment where we thought we were busy in college, and we realized, like, wait a second, we're living the best life,
Yeah, and especially now, I think med school was kind of a bit of a vacation, or at least the first little bit of it. So yeah, the way that med school works is, you start out in just basic classes, so it's no different really than like a graduate program or even college, to where you're sitting in a classroom learning. The only exception would be, there are more lab time. And so what I mean by that is there are like anatomy labs, to where you're working, with people who've donated themselves to science, to learn the anatomy of the human body. And so that is a little bit different. Obviously, you're spending a little bit more time there, but the first 2 years, you're really just dedicated to the classroom setting. Yeah, and then after that, during your third year of med school and beyond, is whenever you really get into the healthcare system and really get into the art of practicing medicine.
So in between like the classroom time and starting to transition to like a lot more labs and really getting into I don't know if I'm using the right words like rotations and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
What how was that transition for you? Was it a pretty natural like at that point in time? Because I feel like there's you can know all the things, right? You can read all the books, taking all the tests, and then you're actually doing it, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, like this is completely different. So how was that transition?
I would say that it was a little rough to put it lightly. So going from your second year of med school, you finished that in I want to say it was early May. So you finished that, and then you had to take a big exam after your second year of med school, and it's the first exam that you take for your licensing, your medical licensing, and so that kind of dictates your entire fate in medicine. So you may have always dreamed of being like a neurosurgeon or something, but that exam is really kind of what determines, if you're competitive enough of an applicant in the future to really become that. And so that process for me specifically was kind of really abbreviated because I ended up getting married between my second and third year, between going from the classroom setting to the hospital setting. And so for me, it was a little bit more challenging than probably it could have been. Happily did it at that time.
Getting married in the middle of all of that, like that is wild.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a transition even without that factor into it, just because you go from this setting to where you feel like you know a lot. You've just finished studying for this big test. You at that point in time know probably more than a lot of the people that have been practicing medicine for like their entire life, and so you think that you know a lot, and then knowing stuff and then putting it into practice and knowing how to use that knowledge that you've created and learned for these past 2 years, that's a completely different ball game. And so that was really the biggest challenge, was learning how to fit into the hospital setting.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember, because for disclosure, for those who don't know, before you moved to Chicago, we were at the same church together. So we had conversations and chatting. And I remember post med school then became like the match, right? The idea of like where you're, and I'm getting the order right. So, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. So you end up, you finished your entire third year of medical school, and then your fourth year of med school is whenever you're going through the match process.
And that's to get to residency, right?
Correct.
And I remember having several conversations with you just about how like the fate of like the world is in like your world is in like someone else's hands. Like you could be anywhere in the country. Obviously, you have choices and you get to kind of choose. You have an idea of like, hey, this is where I want to go. But really, you kind of it's just at the mercy of kind of how things work. So explain that process, because I feel like a lot of people really understand like how that works.
Yeah. So once you are a fourth year, then you decide that you're gonna, go to residency, and then once you do that, it's no different than really like filling out applications for any other sort of like college or whatever. So you end up filling out like a centralized application to where you put all of your credentials on there, your test scores are placed on there, and then you go through this process of choosing the specific residency programs that you want to apply to. And so I think for anesthesia, there's like 180 programs or something like that. So there's quite a few, but nevertheless, you end up putting your application into all these different programs. And then once the application process goes live, then those programs are able to see your application. And once that's done, then inevitably you are put into this system to where you're getting invitations for interviews, and then you go all over the place wherever it is that you get accepted to. So they have to invite you to do that, and then once you're accepted, then you go through this process of, each day that you're there, you're introducing yourself to everybody, going through all these interviews, and then then ultimately once you've gone through all these interviews, then you are ranking these programs that you've interviewed at, from your favorite place to your least favorite place, and then those programs do the same thing to you. So they're ranking you along with all the other applicants, and then there's just an algorithm that determines your fate.
Long story short, is complicated. It's complicated. Yeah. So, so you end up at what hospital in Chicago?
University of Illinois.
University of Illinois. Okay. So now that, is it been a year, or is it close to, is it coming up, or how long has it been now?
Yeah. So it's almost been 13 months since I've started.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how has that transition been for you? I mean, I can't, because at residency stage, this is kind of the stage where, like, you're considered a doctor, like people are coming to you. Mm-hmm. Like, I can imagine being like in your mid-20s, and now all of a sudden there's all this responsibility. How has that been for you?
Yeah, so at first it was obviously like very terrifying, making these potentially life-saving or life-altering decisions. At first there's kind of like a net, like a safety net, to prevent you from making any kind of crazy decisions that could potentially hurt somebody. Obviously, you're not the only person caring for a specific patient. You have like a hierarchy of people involved. But whenever you're overnight and it's 3 a.m. and then you're in the ICU taking care of a patient who is about to, what we call code, where their heart stops beating or whatever, and you're the one making those decisions whenever that's all happening, then you don't really have much of a safety net if you're the only one there. So whenever that first happened, it was a very terrifying feeling, but I just tried to rely on everything that I had been learning and everything that I've been taught leading up to that point. And fortunately, the outcomes have been, as best as they could be.
Hey, no, I love that. I kind of want to switch gears. I think that was really informative. So I really appreciate that, because I think that context kind of helps kind of set the table. So, you're halfway through your residency, at least your first year of residency, sorry. And all of a sudden, now we're hearing things about COVID and this pandemic, and things are starting to shift. And I don't know at what point in time hospitals started hearing things before, the general public did. But when everything first started happening, what was going on in the hospitals? Were people kind of like, hey, like, we know this thing is happening, we're not really sure? Or were you guys like already getting prepped? Because Chicago's, I mean, it's a major city, right? So like I'm sure the opportunity, the attention is a little bit different than like a rural hospital setting.
Yeah, so I heard about COVID back in January, which it came out at the end of 2019, hence COVID-19. So I heard about it in the middle to latter part of January, and there were just like talks about it. There wasn't really anything. But then I remember the beginning of March, I was talking to one of my co-residents, and he said, "Hey, have you been on Twitter lately? There's a big medicine following on Twitter to where people kind of interact and talk."
Everything.
Yeah. And there was a physician out in Italy talking about, the situation going on there. And he was talking about how the patients there, the hospitals were being overwhelmed and people were needing to be put on a ventilator to help them breathe. And that it was so overwhelming that the hospitals were running out of ICU rooms and were having to close down their operating rooms to put patients on ventilators, and starting to take multiple patients that had been infected with the virus and putting them together because, the idea is obviously to isolate them, but were just running out of room. So they were closing down their surgery areas and placing these patients that were intubated and on a ventilator together. And so that was a very mind-opening experience at the beginning of March. And that was the first week of March, I remember. And then 2 weeks later, that's whenever everything kind of happened here. And at that point in time, we knew that it was starting to get really bad in New York. But we didn't really have any kind of idea of what it was going to really become. I mean, we kind of had an idea because of, that experience of, what people were saying in Italy and whatnot, but it wasn't really, we always thought like, oh, this isn't going to happen to us. That's kind of the philosophy. But then whenever it came here, then that was kind of the big, the moment where we kind of buckled down and started taking precautions. Yeah.
So for you and your staff and the team that you work with, when everything was, I don't know if there have been multiple peaks or how that works, but in the first kind of initial peak and wave, like, are you guys working double the amount that you used to? Like, is everyone just kind of like, you're just on call always? Like I just can't imagine just like kind of the pandemonium of like, hey, we have no idea what's happening. And, I'm hearing stories about stuff that's happening in hospitals and I'm just trying to process like there's so much going on.
Yeah. So, during that time, like whenever everything was going on, what they did for my cohort of in my cohort, we were obviously in our first year, and during our year, they were kind of starting to shuffle people. So what I mean by that is during May, I was supposed to be doing cardiology and learning more about the heart, but instead of doing that, I was transitioned into the ICU setting, taking care of these patients, just because they needed to have more people cycling through. So they would kind of do 2-week increments. So you would be in the ICU for 2 weeks, and then you would be off for those 2 weeks, allowing yourself to recuperate. And if for some reason you ended up getting the virus, then you were automatically self-quarantining. So yeah, it was more or less we were kind of redistributed in order to help out in the ICU.
Right. Okay. I wish we had. We don't have a ton more time. I wish we had like enough to talk more about this. But kind of what are you seeing now in terms of? Well, I think people are starting to get a better grasp on what's happening, but there's still a lot of confusion on masks and there all the. There's just so much. Like, what are you seeing and hearing now from like a hospital and doctor perspective?
Yeah, so I think the big thing that's kind of opened my eyes a little bit is, at first everyone was concerned about, it being droplets and to where you would have, like, if you touched something that had COVID on it, then you could potentially bring it and transfer it to yourself. But now, the CDC is saying that the chances of that happening is a lot lower. So people have kind of taken a step back in terms of necessarily like what to touch and what not to touch, and wearing gloves and whatnot. And then the big thing that everyone's always talked about is PPE, and most importantly N95s, which are the masks that kind of prevent aerosolized virus from getting into your lungs. And so we've still continued that. But the studies are kind of pointing towards just having a mask on is as helpful as possible. Specifically, if a patient with COVID has a mask on, the chance of them contaminating everyone else in a room is significantly decreased in comparison to if everyone else has all these other masks on. So the big kind of shift now is making sure that patients, especially patients with COVID-19, are wearing masks. But yeah, I think the big thing really is just the transition of the importance of the mask for everybody.
Right.
I think that one of the big things and one of the things that I've really seen in Chicago specifically is that a lot of people are wearing masks outside. And I don't think that it's really as important to wear them outside, because the big thing is making sure that there's good circulation in the air, and outside the circulation in the air is high enough, and the potential for infection so low that it's not really as big of a deal to wear masks outside as it is being inside.
Yeah, no, that's really good to know. I appreciate that. I want to make sure we have time for questions. So if you're watching, drop a couple questions if you have any. But I want to just kind of kick it off. You kind of throughout this process, through your med school journey, through being in residency, through everything happening in COVID. I mean, that's so much to see for any person, let alone someone just starting out in this journey. For you, what does mental health look like for you? How do you and Ellery like recharge, recoup? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so it's challenging in the sense that the amount of work hasn't really slowed down. I don't necessarily have a whole lot of time off to just kind of recharge, but I would say that, it's the biggest thing is making sure that whenever I come home, I focus all of my time and my energy on family. And so, we obviously talk about, like, if something bad happens in the day, then we talk about it in order to kind of, get it off my chest.
Right.
And I think that, from everything that I've heard from all of my friends at work, that's kind of the big thing, is just talking about it whenever you get home, and then, just setting that aside, and kind of focusing on life outside of this, and trying to make sure to make time for everything else going on in life.
Yeah. So we'll kind of wrap up with this. What, for someone who's wanting to go through this process of med school and residency and kind of continuing on, what advice would you give them? If it's the first thing off the top of your head, what are you giving them?
Yeah, so the first thing is, I would always ask them, do you really understand the time commitment that you're going to make? Because going into medicine, you are making a decision during some of the younger parts of your life, to forego potentially having children, or potentially, experiencing things whenever you are more, more able to get around and exercise and that sort of a thing. And so you're really starting your life in your 30s is whenever you're really able to do a lot. And so that's the first thing that I would say. And then the second thing that I would say is making sure to have a mentor, making sure that there's someone to always, bounce off ideas off of, ask questions, that if at any point in time you're going through the process of, trying to find mentors, or you're trying to find like other mentors, or research, or whatever it is, there's a lot of different things that go into it. But I just think having someone that you can always rely on, that's been through the process, I think is the most important thing. So that would be, I'd ask them that question, and then I'd tell them to try to find somebody to help them along.
Okay, cool. We have two quick questions, and then we'll wrap up. Someone asked, how do you educate and stress the importance of following guidelines when conspiracy theories are so widespread?
Yeah, that's a lot of. So I think a lot of it is, just making sure to point people in the right direction, making sure that, it's okay to have to be aware of these conspiracy theories, and to have, your own doubts, but making sure to always be informed. And so the first thing that I always, mention is, we all like numbers. We all like to know the most credible sources. So I always just point people to, the CDC. And then obviously a lot of people say, like, oh, well, the government is, the cause of all this, and they're the ones that are, implanting us with this, and we're being tested and getting implants or whatever into us to track us. I don't know. I guess the first thing that I do is just ask, why would that happen? And then just give them the resources that I follow and that I trust.
Cool. So one question we always like to ask people before they head off is obviously this community culture night. The goal is just to build community amongst young adults and professionals in the area. So how do you define community, or what does community look like for you?
Yeah, so to me, community kind of centers around having friends, having family, and having good coworkers. I guess with this being around, being centered around work. So making sure that you have a group of people that you can rely on at all points in time, so that no matter what's going on, you can always ask the questions that you think may be dumb.
Yeah, cool. Well, hey, Kris, thanks so much, man, for joining us. We really appreciate taking time after working a 12-hour shift to hang out with us just for a little bit longer. Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course. It was a lot of fun.
I appreciate you, brother. Take care.
All right, thanks.
Awesome. Well, Kris, thanks so much for being a part. This is a really exciting time. I didn't really make the connection until as we were talking that today's kind of all centered on health, just varying different types of health and what does that look like. And so I'm really excited to bring up Madeline Plesac. She is a yoga instructor. So I'm going to let her introduce herself because she has a really cool story. And if you haven't already, this is the moment. Make sure you get some sweats or shorts or whatever, because she's going to walk us through some steps and different things like that. So I know I'm butchering everything that she's going to be doing. So I'm just going to let her do her thing, and we'll bring her on here in just a second. So thanks, guys, again for being a part of this, and we'll make it happen. Thanks, Matt. Hey, Madeline, how you doing?
Good. I have to say, me and I were talking before this, and the one thing I will preface is you cannot do yoga wrong. So wherever you are, whatever you are wearing, there is no wrong way to do yoga. So I'm excited to be here.
Sorry, I just misinformed everyone. Well, on that note, I'm going to let the expert take over. I'm going to kick myself out, and you go for it.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thanks again. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Madeline Plesac. And like me said, I am a yoga teacher. So tonight I am super excited to share just a little bit of my yoga and meditation practice with you. I've tried to set up a little bit of kind of an at-home studio, since so many of the things that we are doing these days kind of take place in our homes. And really want to spend the bulk of our time together kind of getting into our yoga, our meditation, and more so doing, instead of me just kind of talking and sharing about myself. Before we kind of get into that practice part of things, I just wanted to share a little bit more about me and how kind of I came to find the practice of yoga. My connection to this group is with Erica. So Erica and I work together at the Alpha Chi Omega Foundation, which is headquartered in Indianapolis. So that's my current connection to Indy. My sister lives in Indy as well. And I always like to say I am born and raised in Indiana. I was not born in Indiana, but I was raised in Indiana. I grew up in Valparaiso and went to Purdue University. So if we have any other Boilermakers on tonight, boiler up. And really my journey into yoga started, how I was telling me, when I was really a young girl. I remember my mom doing yoga in our living room and just kind of joining her. I know in some of the comments that I saw in the group earlier, we were talking about how yoga is such a great way to just kind of laugh at yourself and be fully present in the moment with other people. And so that was kind of my first taste of yoga. When I moved to Raleigh, so I've been here about 6 years, I started to have just kind of really bad anxiety. I had a moment where I was like, I don't feel like myself. I don't know what to do. And in addition to going to therapy, I really kind of allowed myself to use yoga as a tool to fully center in my body. So I found that the physical practice, or what we call in yoga, the asana practice, kind of gave me the tools to move and kind of create that just strength in my body. But then some of the more kind of calming elements of yoga, so breath work and grounding, allowed me to connect to myself as well. So with that, we are going to move into our practice. I'm going to scoot back to so you can see me a little bit fuller on the screen. And like I said before we started, you cannot do this wrong. So if you are at home joining me in this practice, just come at this with kind of a fun approach. Allow yourself to smile and laugh if something doesn't feel right or doesn't go exactly as planned. And my hope is that truly to leave you with some tools tonight that you can use in your own life to help yourself just kind of release. I think in general, especially kind of listening to Kris and me talk, we all have this sense of overwhelm or kind of general anxiety or stress right now. And so my hope is that you can take a few of the things that we do together away so that you can help, just like I've kind of allowed them to help in my life. So I know I said you could do this from your couch. You definitely are able to do this from your couch. And so wherever you are, just take a few moments to find a comfortable seat. If you are seated on the earth or a yoga mat, just start to let your body kind of settle into your space, feeling fully supported by whatever is beneath you. And so as we move through our practice tonight, my hope is to kind of share a little bit more about the structure of our class, so you know where we're headed and kind of what we're doing and how you can use these tools outside of a yoga practice. But I also will give you time to simply feel in your body. So we are starting with what is called centering in yoga. So if you've been to a yoga class, you most likely have done this maybe on your back, seated, sometimes in a child's pose. But this is really an opportunity to just kind of allow yourself to drop into this space, to kind of settle, release any holding that you might have from your day. And so we'll spend the next few moments working through centering together. And so continuing to find that comfortable seat, you might start to imagine that you are seated on a warm bed of sand, that your body is creating a space wherever you are that is exactly made for you, that is supporting, that is nurturing, and that allows you to kind of just letting go of any holding or any stress that you might be feeling. And to add on from here, I encourage you to consciously start softening the muscles of yourself, of your body, maybe starting at the crown of your head, kind of working through your shoulders, your hips, and your seat. Just imagining that your body is kind of simply melting or becoming heavier in the space that you are currently seated. One of the ways that we can continue to center or kind of anchor our yoga practice is by connecting with breath. So as you are seated, allow yourself to start focusing on your inhales and your exhales. You might imagine that those breaths kind of come in and out, almost like waves on the shore. And allow yourself to breathe here without judgment. So not judging kind of length or how it feels, just simply noticing what it is like to be in your body this evening. One of my favorite things to do during this portion of class is to set an intention. So I invite you tonight, if it feels okay, if you are at a place that this feels right for your practice, to start cultivating an intention. So that might be a word or a phrase. It might be a mantra or something else that you just would like to hold close to your heart this evening. And whatever you have come up with, take a few moments just to breathe here with that thing, whatever it is. So if it's a feeling, you might start to kind of intentionally feel that feeling in your body. If it's maybe a person or a place you would like to visit or are thinking of or sending love to, you might even close your eyes and kind of see that person or that place behind your closed eyes. And so take just a few more moments here, allowing your body to settle. So when you are ready, we'll start to move just a little bit. Again, there is no way to do this wrong, so feel free to join. If you are seated on a chair or the couch, we are going to work through the upper body, so you should be able to move along. You might just need some room to either side. And you'll start by inhaling to draw your arms all the way up towards the sky. As you exhale, you can bring your arms back down towards the earth. And we'll do that a few more times. So starting to link your breath with your movement. Inhales, draw your arms up and overhead. Exhales, bring your arms back and down by your side. We'll do that 3 more times. Inhaling up. Exhaling down, maybe feeling your arms press through the air, almost like you're moving through peanut butter or moving through weights. A few more times. Just allowing yourself to start this movement, kind of connecting body and mind, that breath and body alignment. 1 more. And so this time, keep your arms up and overhead. We're going to come into a side stretch. So you can bring your right fingertips down towards the earth. You'll start to reach all the way up with your left arm. As you exhale, you'll start to side bend over to the right side. And then depending on how much space you have, you might kind of walk your right hand out to the side of the room, or you might start to drop onto your forearm, just listening to your body. As you're here, you can start to feel your left hip anchored down, and then your left fingertips will start to reach up and over. So this should feel really nice through your left side, your left ribs. As you inhale, start to draw all the way back up. From here, you'll take that left arm all the way around to the right side of your head. So your left hand is almost pressed up against your right ear. From here, start to drop your left ear down towards your left shoulder. This is so nice. You can do this at your desk or even at a stoplight, just anytime you're feeling that tension through your shoulders and your neck. And then we'll switch the sensation just a little bit so you can start to turn your gaze down towards your left knee. And so this is a pose where I think it feels nice to kind of play with the placement of my right hand. So you might play around with kind of where that arm lands, or maybe even where your gaze ends up, and you might feel that sensation through that right neck change just a little bit. Slowly start to draw all the way back up to center. We'll move through that on the other side. So as you inhale, draw your arms up to the sky once again. This time you'll bring your left fingertips down. You'll start to side stretch over to the left side. Again, same options, this time with your left arm. You can start to walk your hand out to the side. You might drop all the way onto your forearm. And then start to reach through your right fingertips. As you inhale, draw back up to seated. This time your right arm is going to wrap around that left side of your head. Once you're there, start to drop your right ear down towards your right shoulder. Maybe play with the placement of your left arm. If it felt good on the other side and you would like to play with the movement of your neck, you might turn your gaze down towards your right knee. And then you might kind of play again with the placement of where your left hand or your left arm wants to land, which will really do a lot to change the sensation that you're feeling through the left side. And slowly you can start to draw all the way back up. Both hands will come down onto your lap. And we're going to move through a seated cat and cow. So if you've been to a yoga class, I would say this is one of those standard poses that you probably have seen before. We're going to do it seated. If you have this space and you would like to move up onto your hands and your knees, that is an option. So if you're seated, you can bring your hands to the tops of your legs. If you're seated in a chair, you can do the same thing. Your arms will just be a little bit more out in front of you. As you inhale, you'll start to draw your chest forward, so you're creating an arch through your spine. So this would be our seated cow pose. And then as you exhale, you'll come into cat, so you'll start to round through your back. You can feel your chin start to drop down towards your chest. This would be your cat spine. And then we'll take just a few more rounds of cat and cow, moving with your breath. So inhales, you come forward. Exhales, you start to round. One of the things I love most about yoga is you can kind of add on or tweak poses to work for you. So as you're doing this, you might play a little bit with kind of turning your torso in circles or moving side to side. You might even decide you want to fold a little bit forward, even deeper, or maybe as you come back, it feels good just to kind of move through your shoulders. So one of the things I always encourage people to do in the classes that I teach is to listen to your body and kind of pull on that knowledge that you have inside that knows what feels good, that knows how it wants to move this evening. From here, you can draw all the way back up to sit. We'll just do one or two more seated poses, and then we'll start to move into our meditation. So we'll come into a twist. We'll twist to the right first. So you'll take your left hand over to your right knee. You can bring your right fingertips behind your seat. This can be your twist if you're looking to add on just a little bit. You can start to rotate open with your right arm, so you're using that right shoulder to draw open to the right side. And then if you would like to add on and get a little more advanced, you can start to bring your awareness to your breath. And slowly unwind, we'll switch sides. So this time, right hand is going to come over to your left knee. That left hand is going to come behind your seat. Again, you can stay if this feels good. If you're looking to add on, you'll start to twist open to the left side. You can use that left shoulder to kind of draw your body open. And then if you are looking for just a little bit more tonight, you might start to add on an awareness of your breath. Go ahead, come back to center. Take a few moments just to roll through your shoulders. These are really all great stretches that you can do at your desk during the day. Again, you can do some of these at maybe a stop sign or a stoplight, or in other moments where you have just a little bit of time to kind of pause and settle in. From here, we are going to kind of transition into just a short meditation. It is going to be a mindfulness meditation. So one of the ways that we can cultivate mindfulness in our lives is by doing something and being fully aware. So in our meditation tonight, we are going to work through what is called a body scan meditation. And I'll kind of tell you what to expect. Otherwise, I feel like it can be one of those things where you're like, what is happening? We are going to kind of consciously just bring awareness to different body parts. And as you have that awareness, you'll start to find just a softening or release. So just like you did at the beginning of our time together, where you kind of allowed yourself to settle in, or you relaxed your shoulders or your hips or your feet, you'll do the same thing in this meditation. The way that I will guide it is I will say a part of the body and then move on. So it'll be a long list of body parts. But what I want you to do is just focusing on releasing that specific area. This part can feel nice to close your eyes or lay down. So if you are in a space where that is available to you, that might allow this to feel just a little bit kind of extra sweet or extra special. If you are seated, you can do the same thing and just allow yourself to kind of be comfortable with where you're sitting. And so right away, come back to that place of softening that you found in your body. Feeling supported by the support beneath you. Feeling fully whole in whatever has come up for you today. Kind of giving yourself maybe a nudge to let go of anything that's on your to-do list still. And allowing these last few moments of our class together to be moments just to focus on you, to hopefully melt away anything that is no longer serving you. And so to start our body scan, start to bring your awareness to your toes. Feel your toes start to release, start to soften, start to let go. Feel the tops of your feet, the bottoms of your feet and your heels grow just as heavy. Moving up to your lower legs, your shins and your calves. And start to let that space in your legs ground down towards the earth. And then start to feel your knees release as well. Feeling heavy, feeling maybe the space behind your knees, imprinting onto the earth, or if you're seated, just allowing that to be really nice and easy in your body. Moving up, start to feel your thighs release, the fronts and the backs. From here, your entire legs are soft. Moving up to your hips, feel the inner workings of your hips, your glutes. Do the same, become heavy. Allow your low back to release, your abdomen to release, and then your chest. Equally as important, allow your back to release so your whole core, your whole trunk is soft. And then start to feel your shoulders pressing down towards the earth, or if you're seated, just growing heavy towards whatever space you're seated in. And let your upper arms become heavy, your elbows, your forearms, and your hands. And then moving up from here, your neck. Let your head, your neck, all just be in space. And finally, your face. And let your tongue maybe become heavy in the roof of your mouth. You can part your lips if that feels good. You can feel your eyes growing heavy in their sockets. And feel your ears let go. Maybe any other muscles that you feel are holding on in your scalp. And then fully the crown of your head, the top of your head, fully release. Your body in this state of being, in this state of kind of holding space for whatever it is you need. And take a few breaths here just to feel the effects of this meditation on your body. Maybe come back to your breath, come back to this space. And to come out of your meditation, you might start to move a little bit through your fingers or through your upper body or your toes if you are reclined. And slowly you can start to make your way up into a seated position. Normally in a yoga class, we will end with namaste together. So we will end the part of our practice like that tonight as well. You can bring your hands into prayer at your heart. You can drop your gaze down towards your fingers. I always enjoy just taking a moment to feel gratitude for this community, feeling gratitude for an opportunity to be together, even despite the fact that we are virtual. And most importantly, just allow yourself to have gratitude for yourself, for showing up day in and day out, for doing the best that you can each and every day. and for holding space for whatever comes up. Namaste. So hopefully you enjoyed that short practice. I just wanted to, before Nee comes back on for questions, kind of quickly just kind of give you some ideas of ways that you can use what we've talked about or what we experienced tonight in your own life as tools to help you kind of decompress after a stressful day. And a few of those to me are allowing yourself to ground in the present moment. So just like we did at the beginning of class, you can do that at your desk, in line at the grocery store, maybe as you're waiting for your coffee in the drive-through. Just take a moment to kind of fully settle in. Even if your eyes aren't closed, allow yourself to focus on your breath, or maybe focus on a song that's on the radio, allowing yourself to just fully be present. A few other things, you might start to mindfully intention set at the beginning of your day. It doesn't have to be in a seated position or in a yoga position. It can be while you're walking your dog or making coffee. Maybe you try to just live intentionally or set something, maybe it's calm, maybe it's joy, that you can kind of continue to feel as you move throughout your day. Two others, just that gentle moving and stretching. I know I always find myself at my desk kind of moving through my neck or my shoulders. So any of those would be great to do just as a break in your workday. And then finally, kind of wrapping it all together, just allowing yourself to have grace, but also be more mindful in what you are doing. So for me, there are many tasks like brushing my teeth, making coffee in the morning that I almost do on autopilot. And so allowing yourself a moment to kind of drop in and do that with your full attention or your full awareness can just help your mind to refocus or recenter. So I know we are going to leave some time for questions. Nee, if you want to jump back in, feel free to do so. And thank you all for practicing with me and welcoming me into this group. It's been so much fun.
That was incredible. I wish we had like 5 hours. I mean, that's probably a long time for yoga, but that was awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was absolutely incredible. I didn't even know, even virtually, how like impactful that could be. I was like literally lying on the ground doing it, and you can just kind of feel, some of the tension just kind of release.
And I think one of the things that's so amazing about that is that, I mean, even with breath, when you are intentional about letting something go, even the thought helps.
Yeah.
So you might not see it, but earlier today, I was just having a moment of feeling overwhelmed, and Tyler, my fiance, was like, you just need to smile. Like somehow when you smile, you start to feel better. And so I think it's kind of that similar concept of like, let go. I'm okay. I'm supported.
Yeah. Well, and that's a perfect segue to the question that somebody asked. So many people do yoga, not just for physical reasons, but mental health and spiritual reasons. So what is it about yoga that impacts more than just the physical aspects? Because it is really holistic.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I feel like there's so many answers to it because like you said, and like you mentioned, so many people do yoga for so many different reasons. I know, kind of speaking for myself, one of the things that I found to be really impactful in my practice is that I think yoga gives us the space to feel. So in a lot of other workouts, we might be going quickly from a burpee to whatever else you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think yoga gives us that time, or gives us that permission to kind of hit the pause button and say, how am I feeling? Does this feel good? The other thing I find in my practice that I kind of think is like a mind-body connection is the element of doing difficult things. Not every pose is easy, but when you're able to do something that's challenging, you might start to realize how that translates off of your mat, and how if you can work through something mentally in a physical posture, that it can translate off the mat as well. So I don't know if that answered the question, but I think it just gives us time to feel, really.
So another question, do you have any tips for people who are new to an at-home practice? What does that look like? What are some tips for people who are wanting to start?
Yeah, I'll share what's worked for me and some other things that I've learned just along my journey as a teacher. I think the number one thing is finding a space that works for you. Tonight, I kind of staged my setup. So I know that we're not always going to have plants and salt lamps and all of that, but if you can find a space in your house that feels good, maybe it's a spot where you have good light or a spot where you can light a candle, make room for yourself to practice. I think that's really important. Some of the other things, if you are looking to do more yoga, I know somebody commented this earlier. I've really enjoyed the Peloton app. So they have great classes, but a lot of studios are offering virtual sessions as well. So the studio that I teach at is in Raleigh, but if anyone is interested, we do all live stream classes right now. So you are able to tune in. It's all through Zoom. And we have all different classes from beginner series to more advanced. So I would say a practice space and then finding a teacher and a type of yoga that you enjoy.
Perfect. So I know we got to wrap up. So where can people find you, connect with you if they're interested in doing a virtual, I was going to say virtual visit, a virtual yoga with you? How do they do that?
Mm-hmm. So I am in the Facebook group. So one of the, I would say, quickest ways to reach me is to just shoot me a message on Facebook. I will check it there. I know Nia is going to post some contact information as well after this. So I will link to my website and that will have my email. So if you are interested, do that. I do corporate classes as well. So that's kind of something that not everybody is aware of. But if your workplace is interested in doing a lunchtime yoga, that is something that can be super fun. So I will make sure that you all have my contact information.
Awesome. And last question, like we said, we like to ask this of everyone. What does community mean to you? What does it look like for you? And how does it impact your life?
Yeah, so when you asked Kris that, I started to think about that question, pre-plan. And the word yoga actually means unity.
Wow.
And so I think kind of full circle, community and yoga really are this coming together of people. I think it's support. I think it's encouragement. I think it's kind of what Kris said, having people to turn to so you don't feel like you're asking that stupid question. And just having that place where you feel like you can be your true, authentic self. I think that's really, truly what community is.
Awesome. Well, Madeline, thank you again so much for being a part of this. This is a really unique opportunity that we had to work with you and learn from you. And I think we're all better for it. So again, thank you so much for joining us and being a part with us today.
You're welcome. It was so nice to meet everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being a part of Community Culture Night again for the month of July. Stay tuned for what's going on in August. We will keep you up to date. We're trying to work some things out to hopefully potentially be live. We're trying to kind of play things by ear, but we would love to do this so we can be with everyone, socially distanced, of course, and hopefully outside. So like we said, we're still working out the details on that, but we'll keep you updated as much as possible. We're going to have some great presenters for you as well. So if you have any questions, let us know, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much, guys. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.